what we can do being in Hong Kong and being this very well connected sort of business school and an international business school is basically we need to be that bridge between the businesses and the ecosystems in mainland China and sort of connecting them with the world, but also connecting the world with those businesses. And I don't mean this in a very slogan-esque way. I think we really need to do it and convene people. And it means executives, entrepreneurs from those businesses that are now looking to go abroad and connecting them with businesses in Europe and Eurasia and the UK.
On AI, we're all living it. How are you seeing AI changing business and business careers?
The big challenge is that implementation of AI and change is not a technology problem, but a people problem.
Welcome to the 𝐤𝐭𝐬 MBA Superconnector podcast. My name is Stephen Shih, and I'm the Associate Dean for our MBA programs. Today, I am excited to share my conversation with our new Dean of the 𝐤𝐭𝐬 Business School, Professor Frederik Anseel. Frederik began his career in the field of psychology and has applied his expertise as a business teacher, researcher, and leader of business schools. His research is well known in the areas of leadership, learning, and feedback. Stanford University ranked Professor Anseel among the world's top 2%. Equally impressive have been his roles helping to build and lead business schools around the world, where he has developed expertise in designing cross-disciplinary collaborations and partnerships with industry. In this conversation, the first, I hope, of many, you'll have a chance to hear about what brought Frederik to 𝐤𝐭𝐬 and how he thinks about leadership and the strategic priorities he is helping our school align on. We also dive deep into artificial intelligence and the future of business careers. This will, I hope, get you to also think deeper about what you personally can do to help shape the use of AI so it makes the world better for all of us. Frederik, it's great to have you on the podcast with us. We're so excited that you're here at 𝐤𝐭𝐬, and you've been all over the world. You've been teaching and doing research in Belgium, and then in Italy, and then France, then the UK, then Australia, and now 𝐤𝐭𝐬. Why don't we start, just give us a few minutes of background and some insight into your journey and how that's come together here at 𝐤𝐭𝐬.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And I've had an exciting few months sort of being new and arriving in Hong Kong. And so I'm happy to talk a bit about how I got here. And when you sort of speak about all the places, it seems like there was some sort of a plan or almost a touristic plan.
You like good food.
Yeah. Good food and good cities. I think that's almost sort of a common thread. There was not really a plan. So as you said, I'm originally from Belgium, sort of the Dutch Flemish speaking part. And my background is in psychology. So originally I was a PhD student and a professor of psychology, sort of in judgment and decision making, organizational psychology. And increasingly, I felt sort of I'm working with businesses and executives all the time. And increasingly, I felt less at home in a faculty of psychology that was very much focused on neuropsychology, right? And there's a bit of, after a while, a disconnect sort of. And so I got my taste of business schools, as you said, in ESSEC in Paris and at Bocconi in Italy. And so I decided like my home is probably in a business school, but what is a good home then? And at that time, I got an offer from King's College London. And that was exciting because King's College London is, of course, a prestigious university, well known, but they didn't have a business school. And that was a bit strange, of course. And they also found that strange. They had a smaller department of management, but said, we want to build a new business school in the midst of London, just opposite London School of Economics in Bush House, which is this iconic building where Churchill had given his speeches during the World War, and so everyone knows it. So it was very bold and very ambitious, and they asked if I wanted to be part of the inaugural leadership team, and so I became vice dean at King's Business School, and so I was launching a new business school. So it was super exciting, and so we quickly sort of grew the business school. That meant hiring a lot of new faculty, from 50 to 120 faculty, and so I spent a good 3 years there, and I think we sort of made a good mark for ourselves very quickly, and I think King's College is doing very well. And then at the end of that 3 years, I got a call from Sydney, University of New South Wales, UNSW Sydney, that is known for the Australian Graduate School of Management, AGSM. And they had heard about what I was doing in King's College. And they said, would you be interested in sort of doing it at a larger scale? Because UNSW Sydney is a very large business school, 18,000 students. So that is it's a huge operation, right? And my wife and I, we had always said, no way, we don't have an Australian dream. Probably like we had discussed this, that like Singapore and Hong Kong, that would be as far as we go. But then you just do a visit, and Australia and Sydney is a very appealing city. The life in Sydney is fantastic, but also a very ambitious project at UNSW. They were very ambitious in growing and sort of also growing in the rankings, investing in a university that was very much also about engineering and technology and business. And they've done really well. Early this morning, I read that in the new University QS World Ranking, they ranked 19 and are now #1 in Australia. So cheers for UNSW. So they did very well. And so we moved there, 2019. First experience 2 months later was that Australia closed its border because of COVID, right? So I had a very interesting period, and COVID in Sydney was both good and bad. Sometimes I said it's the best place to go through pandemic because we could go out, and because the borders was closed, there was actually no COVID at all. And so it was okay. But at the same time, universities really struggled throughout this COVID period, and being new to university, working online in the beginning, that was hard, right? I think we muddled through that first period and actually came very strong out of COVID. We did very well as a business school because we were already very online enabled. And so we had an online MBA that did very well. And after COVID grew further and hit top 10 rankings across the world. So we did very well. We're recognized as the best business school in Australia. And so I originally started as a deputy dean and became dean of the business school for a couple of years. And so great trajectory, 6 years in Sydney. And then very recently, I got an opportunity to get to know 𝐻𝐾UST. And I had already started thinking a bit about big challenges in the world and where I could sort of make an impact or make a difference. And also what would be the most interesting place to be right now. And I'm probably not alone reading what is happening in the world. And so I saw two big things happening in the world. And so one is geopolitics, of course, and you see this in the past 10 years, let's put it like this, the rise of China's economy and technology ecosystem, and sort of being an economic superpower right now, sort of on par with the US, and everyone sees that. And the other sort of big change in the world that I saw happening very quickly is technology and AI. And I saw these two things are changing the world completely, and that will change the world and will define, I think, the world in the next 10 years. And so I sort of had set my mind, I want to be part of that, and I want to be sort of living all that and helping shape it. And then, of course, when I got a call from 𝐻𝐾UST, that's where things are happening, of course, because 𝐻𝐾UST is part of Greater China, is exposed to all this new technology, but is also very international and outward facing. And so being sort of at the crossroads of it, at the intersection, is so exciting. And 𝐻𝐾UST is a University of Science and Technology, and so known for AI and embracing technology. And so if you talk about AI defining the next 10 years, you want to be at a university that is sort of at the forefront of AI and embracing it. And so that sort of made the decision for me.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, since you've spent time at so many different business schools and you've really seen different models of it, different environments. So you've spotted this opportunity. I think one of the things people sometimes don't appreciate is how complex universities and business schools can be and the leadership challenges of them. You've helped to start a business school. You've also helped lead a really large one in Australia. And then you came here and had a interesting leadership challenge of, well, how do you come in, integrate, think about, getting started and setting priorities. A lot of our listeners are also either doing that or they will do that in their career. Share a little bit with us on how you thought about that, your first several months here, and, your priorities, how'd you allocate time, what were your goals, and where do you feel you are now?
Yeah, it's a good one because I've had a few fresh starts already. I've learned a bit how to do it, in a sense that I tell myself, trust the process, don't get nervous about anything, I have a deliberate process, but I'm try to make it appear as I don't have a process. Because for every new institution that you come into and the people there, you are new for them as well. They need to be 100% certain that you are very excited and this is like your big opportunity and your first time at this place. And in a sense, it is like that. So I want to make sure that I convey this sense of energy and excitement to people. So in the first months and first 100 days, I try to talk to as many people as possible. And I listen and I try to understand. One goal of this is, of course, I've learned not to have any assumptions. First impressions can be very wrong. They are actually, they are often wrong. And so what you think is not working might actually be working. And the things that you think, oh, that is not a problem, turn out later to be a problem, right? And so I don't try to have any assumptions about what is good, what is bad. And I try to sort of listen very carefully and understand. The second thing is, and this is my own leadership style, and you sort of discover what works best for you. I work best through individual conversations. And so I spend a lot of time in individual conversations because I try to build a connection with people and I try to build trust. And for me, that works best in individual conversations. And also in individual conversations, I am able to infuse gradually and cautiously some of my own ideas. And I find that they stick better than when I do these big announcements or come up with a plan on a paper or make a big presentation. I know, because I was once also one of them, faculty academics, I know how faculty think. They roll their eyes with big plans. And so I often think it works much better if you do individual conversations. Of course, I am limited in my time to have all these individual conversations, but I still try to do it because I find for me it works best in doing so. The downside is if I'm having individual conversations or like I'm talking to you right now, no one else hears what I'm doing and they don't see me. And after a while they think, where is the dean? Right? And so you also need to be visible as a dean. So that's where I use also in my first months a lot of social media to just sort of give people the impression that I'm everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I've had people saying that to me. It seems like you're everywhere. It's not true, of course, but it is a very deliberate orchestration of going to events, being present and making sure that other people are sort of witnessing it by making it very visible on social media or through communications. And so it's a sort of a two-pronged approach that individually nurture very trusted, deep conversations to understand and to build connection, but at the same time being very broadly visible to everyone.
So getting input, having the conversations. And I felt that in all of our one-on-ones where it does feel, and I feel a lot of ability to provide input, to help shape our future, and I feel empowered because of it. And I feel ownership because of it. So I see that in the visibility with social media to help make sure people are aware of what's going on. You also, 99 days after you started. So in your first 100 days, I remember this, you had a faculty meeting. We had all our business school faculty and you outlined a vision, or at least the beginnings of a vision, and I found it really, really helpful. Can you just share a bit of that new horizons that you talked about and how you're starting to see priorities for our school?
Yes, great. I did not initially had a plan to come out with a vision statement after 100 days, but in those individual conversations, I felt that there clearly was a need. People were asking, what are these ideas going to be? And so they actually grew from the conversations, like our conversations that I had with everyone. And I often see also a leader or my role as just a way of a catalyst or crystallizing what is already going around. And so I basically just captured it in like three big directions. As you said, it's early days, it's preliminary. But so as I already described, these two big macro trends, right? The rise of China's economy as a superpower, AI. And so these are like the two first big ideas. What we can do being in Hong Kong and being this very well connected sort of business school and an international business school is basically we need to be that bridge between the businesses and the ecosystems in mainland China and sort of connecting them with the world, but also connecting the world with those businesses. And I don't mean this in a very slogan-esque way. I think we really need to do it and convene people. And it means executives, entrepreneurs from those businesses that are now looking to go abroad and connecting them with businesses in Europe and Eurasia and the UK, and provide a platform, a safe space to connect those people. And that would mean that we are more than a business school. Basically, business schools are seen as like just educating master students or MBA students. I think we can be more than a business school. We can be a platform where people connect and businesses connect. So that is the first idea. The second one is, of course, this sort of being a business school where technology meets business, because we are part of University of Science and Technology. We have these great engineers, people in science that are working on robotics, on AI, on new energy solutions, on the future of sort of quantum and in cybersecurity. There's so much exciting things happening on the technology side that a lot of business schools don't know about, or business school students are not exposed to. We can do all that. So we can be that place where students sort of get exposure to technologies before they become mainstream, and where we as a business school sort of explore how can that turn into businesses, how will that affect markets and capital markets. And so this is the second thing. We will need to be a business school that is technology focused and technology first. And so we're already part of that in pockets, but we need to build that into sort of a one unified proposition, an image that students know, if I go to HKUST Business School, I'll get exposed to technologies and how they shape markets and businesses before that happens anywhere else. And the third thing is, of course, this idea that we are a research-intensive business school. And often when we talk about research, strangely enough, we don't talk about the impact those ideas have on careers and businesses, but we talk about journal publications and rankings. And often we talk to each other. Academics talk to other academics, but we need to get those ideas out there, and we need to get those ideas influencing careers of our graduates and influencing new businesses, new ventures. I do believe that in 5 to 10 years, all this talk about rankings will fade a bit. We will be talking much more about how has that business school had an impact on the economy, on economic policy, on new ventures. And we will talk more about the unicorns that have come out of a business school, for instance, or the exciting new startups. And so this is something that we really want to work on. And so these are the big three ideas. It's basically the bridge between China and the world, where technology meets business, and then sort of how we can make sure that our research creates new businesses and have impact on economic policies.
And what I like about that and the three elements is it really does reflect a lot of our strengths here and what we can build off of, and also the unique opportunities for the business school. They also strike me as interrelated, right? I mean,
Yes.
Geopolitics and AI are very much
Yes.
And how do we as business school leaders, teachers, researchers have an impact on those big topics as well. Let's focus today on AI.
Okay.
And I want to reserve the right to come back and chat with you in future episodes about the other themes. But on AI, we're all living it. How are you seeing AI changing business and business careers? What are some of the things that are on your mind that you really see happening here?
If I would have a crystal ball, I would be very rich, right? But I don't have one. I'm doing research on AI, but also following all the debates on especially AI and the future of work and careers. And so I'll give you my best take, and also try to talk a bit about where I think people sometimes get things wrong, right? So first, I remember I think it was November 2022, and Sam Altman from OpenAI said, AI is going to change everything. And I agree. I do think that it's going to change everything we do. But I do think that we overestimate change in the short run, and that will leave some people disappointed, like, business is still business. But we underestimate what it will do in the long run. And so I think it is quite similar to many of the big changes that we've seen in the industrial revolutions in the past, be it railroads, be it electricity, be it the sort of IT revolution and the internet. All of them have structurally changed how we do business, but sometimes in unpredictable ways, right? So where I think it's going to be slower than a lot of people think is basically there's a certain inertia in organizational structures and how the world works. And people are not so quick in changing how they work, how they interrelate, how markets work. And so I'll apply it to my own world. People simply say now, like, if you think about that AI can know everything in terms of knowledge, but also can all do the operations underlying the knowledge, like doing analysis, doing the reporting, doing the writing. So basically people say that's a lot of functions that a university would tend to do in education and research. So basically AI is going to wipe out universities altogether. And so this is where I think people get it wrong. They misunderstand that social structures like university have a function in society, and businesses have it, and governments have it, that is much more ingrained in how societies functions. And so it is not because some tasks or some functions can be replaced that automatically that will happen. And so I think it will go much slower. That makes it very hard for businesses to adapt to those changes, because you can be right too early. We've seen that in the dot-com crisis as well. A lot of actually the internet businesses at the time, if you look at it now, a lot of the propositions they had or the hypothesis, they got it exactly right, but they were right too early and went out of business. I think this will happen now as well. So a lot of businesses are betting on some of the AI models. Well, I'm going to say to you, maybe the AI models that are around now are like the Yahoo of the early 2000s, and there might new models that overtake them all, right? And that makes it also hard for our students that are planning their careers. It is very hard to know what careers will be prospering and what sectors or career paths might be less interesting. I would say to our students, typically all the forecasts about what you need to study and what will be the successful careers, they are invariably wrong, right? So don't believe forecasts about what will be successful careers in 5 to 10 years, because history has shown we are so bad in predicting what will be the important careers.
And on that, given the uncertainty, right, we know AI is going to change business and careers. It's hard to predict which way it's going to go or how it'll develop, and we've got to help create the future. What would you suggest for, let's say, a student getting started at 𝐬𝐭𝐬, joining our MBA program? How can they best prepare themselves? What are some of the things that would help?
Okay. So one way, so I often talk to students, right? And I sense a bit of despair. I don't want to make fun of that, but the despair, the stress is tangible, and they think that there will not be no jobs for them. And so I have a more optimistic message. So I'm going to use this quote from, I think, Douglas Adams, who said that any technology that is around when you're born, you see as the natural order of things. You don't question it, and it feels completely natural. Any technology that is invented in the age that you are between 15 and 35 is new, super exciting, and you surely can make a career out of it. Every technology that is invented after you're 35, you see as against the natural order of things and bad, right? Clearly, I am in that category, so I try to be positive. But what I mean is, for students right now, let's say between 15 and 35, they are at a very early stage of a new technology development. It is super exciting, and they can make a fantastic career out of it. So what does it mean is, and it will happen naturally, they just need to stay current and benefit from all the advanced models and make sure that they understand and can work with advanced AI. And so they might be be overwhelmed by it, but they underestimate that actually they are very advanced already. And people like me, who are a bit later career stage already, they should be worried about us, right? But so first one is make sure that it goes very fast, this acceleration. So it's almost make sure that you stay week by week, month by month, stay current about advanced new models, right? The second thing is spend a bit of time thinking about if it is indeed true that AI is able to replace things that humans were good at. It could be analysis, it could be reporting, it could be writing. So what becomes scarce and extremely valuable if all the rest becomes a commodity? And so I would say counterintuitively, it is human skills, right? And so they need to invest, I think, for instance, I'll give you some examples in how do you connect with other people? Because it is in the relationships and in the connection that you'll be able to persuade people to do something for you, or to manage that in a team, or to sell something, or get people behind you or behind a certain vision. Or if let's say if you're in finance and investment markets, even if you all have the best reporting, but everyone has the same type of reporting, at some point you'll need to have a conviction about an investment bet, but people will challenge you. So you will need to be able to hold yourself in a room of other investors that will challenge your ideas. So that means that you need to explain yourself and justify what you're doing. These are very strong interpersonal skills. I'll give a third one that is a bit probably counterintuitive. Learn how to write. Learn how to write, because look, if everyone has access to the same AI models and everyone is writing right now and generating text with AI, it is horrible. It is AI slop. We see it everywhere now if you're on social media, but also if you read emails, if you read press releases, announcements, if you listen to speeches that are being given. It is a horrible language. It does not stand out. It falls flat, and so it does not inspire anyone. It does not provoke any new ideas. And so anyone that will be able to craft messages that create a sense of humanness, uniqueness, a unique voice, it will immediately stand out. People will listen, people will follow you, people will hear your ideas. And so counterintuitively, if everyone has exposure and access to the same thing, you need to look what is unique and scarce. And so learning how to write succinct, tight, brief ways that stand out that's a unique human skills, will make you stand out.
That resonates with me. I find nowadays, as I try to evaluate the authenticity or the, what people really believe, and if I receive an email, I've got my AI detector on, right? Is this
exactly
what they're telling me, or is it just some AI generated message? And this point you bring up about the human skills. It's, we do a lot of research, and there's a lot of value in applying the AI tools for sure. But we're also doing a lot of interesting research on how humans work with AI. I've talked to different professors in our school about this, very interesting experiments, very interesting findings. What are some of the research areas that you're most excited about and that you think can really help inform practice in the future?
Yeah, this is the best part of my job. I just walk around and I talk to our faculty, academics, and they sort of casually talk about their research. And I think, this is wild. This is truly wild. Like, I don't know where to start. I'll tell you something that I heard this week in a sort of, we had a meeting about funding and very boring things. And then an economist sort of casually said what he was working on. And I was like, wow. So he has background actually in neuroeconomics, right? Sort of studying actually sort of the brain and in decision making. And he now shifts to looking at how AI, large language models, how it makes decisions. So we know that in behavioral economics, we know that humans are biased in how we make decisions, how we look at risk. And they find actually, if you do experiments with large language model, often AI is more rational in decision making than humans, right? And this is very interesting. And so in that research, they try to unpack why AI is more rational in decision making. And so they try to, for instance, by running experiments on AI and a large language model, they try to tweak the language and the prompts, how they present a risk or an investment decision. And they look at, depending on the language of that, how the AI model assesses the risk and how it comes to more rational decision making. Why is that so important for us? Because these are the first studies that actually look at the black box of AI. Because currently we prompt or we ask an AI agent to do something, but it's a black box. And so we need to work on of AI, because that will be hugely important. Like, think about pension funds or investment firms in terms of compliant or auditing. If they cannot explain what is actually happening, why a decision, why a risk is being taken, basically that is a huge risk to the financial environment. So the explainability of decision making is super important. And if we can increase the rationality of that, it might be that AI decision making is more rational than humans. And now here is the interesting part. Now, by studying that, the goal is to tie it back to human decision making and the human brain. Because we know that actually large language models are modeled on neural networks in the same way as the brain makes decisions. By better understanding large language models, we actually can better understand how the brain makes decisions. And so I think this is wild, right? Studying AI and large language models with the ultimate goal to better understand how the brain, the human brain works. And these are economists doing this. So me as a psychologist, I was sort of blown away by all this, right?
Fascinating. Well, on this one, so AI being more rational as a decision maker, can you see a world where we actually delegate that decision making to AI? Like, where does that stop?
A lot of people would say no, because when you read all the press and the sort of management thinking, everyone says there will be a set of unique human capacities that will not be replaceable, and judgment and decision making is often one of them. I think that is probably not true. I think in many ways, AI, machine learning and algorithms can make better decisions than humans. And so we will probably outsource decision making to AI models. The problem is, even if AI models are 99.9% accurate, we still need to accommodate the likelihood and the risk that in that 0.1%, they make mistakes. And who is accountable when that happens? And so if you look at the research on psychology, on the human brain, we really struggle with this. And I'm going to give you an example, right? Imagine self-driving cars, which is basically an AI model, right? We tend to accept that when we have human drivers in a car, that accidents will happen. And we accept hundreds, if not thousands, of accidents on the road with fatal outcomes. We accept it as a sort of a normal part of traffic. Why? Because we understand humans and we believe deep down that humans have genuinely good intentions. So we accept that people make mistakes, but we believe that people have good intentions. So we accept that people will not intentionally step into their car to kill someone. Now, so that's what we accept the current situation. Now, imagine that with self-driving cars, we will only have a fraction of the accidents and human fatalities in traffic when we have human AI driven cars, because they are so much better in the decision making. But in the few instances that accidents will happen, and we will have, let's say, imagine that a child dies in an accident because of a self-driving car, as a society, we will not be willing to accept that at all, which is strange, because likely it will be 1,000th of what normally happens in traffic, and still we will not accept it. Why? Because we think actually that AI is not benevolent. So the way we judge computers and how they make decisions, we don't give them the benefit of thinking that they have good intentions. And so we judge errors and accidents from AI much harsher and much more unacceptable than human errors and accidents. And so this poses businesses, I'm giving the example of cars, but for businesses, that's a huge, difficult to think about, right?
Yeah, and let's bring this back to someone who's working in a business, leading a business. We don't know everything yet. There's still a lot of research to be done. There's a lot of experimentation to be done, pilots. But based on what we do know today and tying it back with your understanding around psychology, teamwork, group behavior, what are some things that you feel important to encourage business leaders to think about as they try to adopt AI and implement AI in their companies?
So building on what I described, so I think the big challenge is that implementation of AI and change is not a technology problem, but a people problem, right? We know from all the research right now that trust in AI is low. So people basically don't trust machines. And so one of the things that business leaders will need to do is pay much more attention and do much more effort in building trust in AI systems. That means explaining, first of all, the purpose. Why are we doing this? So one place of distrust is basically this whole debate on AI will replace people. So first of all, you need, and very recently, a lot of business leaders have not helped that conversation, right? They've made statements about replacement and automation. So I think, first of all, business leaders will need to explain, if we're going to introduce AI, what is the ultimate purpose? It is very hard to convince people to adopt AI if basically the basic message is the end goal is to replace you and get you out of your job, right? So I think a lot of business leaders currently do not have a plan and not a long-term vision of where they're going. A lot of them do short-term thinking and are looking at the short-term gains to be had from implementing AI, but it will bite them in the longer term. So purpose, where are you going with this? Does it mean for the company? What does it mean for people? And then it is about explaining how the AI systems will be used, how they can be trusted. This is where the explainability of AI comes in. What type of decision-making will happen by the person, by AI? How are we going to make that work together? What is the type of collaboration? What will be human tasks, human accountability? What will be AI task, AI accountability? How will that be built into the system? Instead of just saying, we want everyone to work with AI, do your best and become more productive. Because people run into the wall when you do that. In the early days, that was fine as a message because you needed to get people to get used to working with AI and sort of upskill. Right now, I think it's the wrong message, just saying to people, everyone needs to do AI. Right now, a company needs to identify in our workflows, in our organizational design, where are the places that we want to embed AI and benefit from AI, and how are we going to build around it? And currently, I don't see a lot of businesses doing that right now.
Yeah, it does feel like this point about explaining what's happening is really important. That's the job of a leader in many respects, right? Just helping everyone in the company make sense of things. And this point you made about the purpose of AI, a lot of companies now are issuing these releases where when they explain the reason they're doing a layoff or reduction in force is because of AI. And it seems like that's a short-term win for investors perhaps, but very rarely do we talk about what does that mean for all of the people in the organization that are left and how does that impact their...
Exactly. And they're playing with fire, right?
Yeah.
Because in a sense, I think at least part of those sort of redundancies don't have anything to do with AI. It is just sort of a bit of economic climate and are just sort of a restructuring waiting to happen. And now under the disguise of AI, it's sort of an acceptable narrative to do it.
And some people may believe that shows the company is going to be more advanced at adopting AI, but it could have a longer impact of slowing it down actually internally. Internal resistance. And then on this idea of working with AI in the future, different configurations of organization structure. One topic I haven't heard as much about, curious your thoughts here, is what happens when we're facing more embodied AI or robots. I was watching some of the Star Wars episodes recently, and we're going to be talking to our R2-D2. But does that change anything when it's the AI is not just us at the computer or on our phone, but it's a robot?
Yeah, I do think so. I see it as a sort of a to be expected extension, because at first we interact with AI to this sort of chat box, and then we go to all these AI agents that basically do things for us on their own, but it's still digital. Yep. And at some point, it is to be expected that it will go to the physical world, right? I'll embrace it all. I think it can increase productivity. It can help us. But again, I don't think it's going to be necessarily this sort of humanoid, Star Wars type of, it is a human that can think, speak, and do the same things as a person. I think robotics and embodied AI will do a lot of tasks that we probably cannot do, and it will create new opportunities. Like, look, I'm not sure if 20 years ago, and you went to school and you spoke to a career advisor about what you're going to study, that somebody said, well, we're going to probably in 25 years, we will be building data centers in space, And that is a very exciting career to be in. Please prepare for that. I think this sort of embodied AI and robotics, they'll be up there on Mars building the data centers, right? And so I think that opens up wild new opportunities, but it will still not mean that we don't need humans to design, think, plan, have a vision of how that would be going. We will still need engineers to build all those things, but it will open completely new ways, a bit like if we think 200 years ago and you suddenly had machines that would help you in mining. Well, fantastic, right? New opportunities were possible suddenly.
Well, I've been asking you a lot of questions, and I know people are always asking for answers, but let's wrap up for our audience. What are questions that you think they need to be thinking about, that questions that you would ask all of our listeners to think about to get AI right in the future, to make it a positive force for us?
Yeah. I think I have two things that I wake at night about. I don't have a solution, but I'm worried. One is, this is a question to business leaders, policymakers, is how are we going to avoid increasing inequality? I think a lot of people get it wrong, that they think that because everyone will have AI, that it will be the big equalizer. I think that's wrong. I think my analysis of everything that I see is basically it will make the strong stronger, and it will sort of create more divergence. And I mean divergence at every single level, between countries, within businesses, between people, but even at an educational level. I think what we will see is that we will have elite universities that are super selective and only a few people can access them and will be set up for incredible careers. And then we will have more massification and sort of universities that sort of cater more to very large audience of students. And that will create from the very start inequality. And so potentially that creates fracturing of societies, so social unrest. We really need to think about that. So that is one big question. How do you deal with that? The second question is, how do we avoid, and I'll use the word, enshitifcation?
Oh.
You probably know this, right? And I'll explain it briefly. Every single time that we have great inventions, let's think about social media, even let's think about email. At some point in the beginning, you think like, this is such a great invention. Social media in the beginning was this exciting place where I could hear from Nobel Prize winners in economics or in mathematics.
Yep.
They shared their ideas, writers shared their ideas, you could interact. It was original, thought-provoking, you built new friends, new relationships. It was fantastic. And then all these businesses look at it and say, oh, we can probably sort of squeeze a bit of money out of this, which is fine. You need to have a business model, but then because of short-term gain, they turn it into a horrible environment. And so honestly, if you now go on former Twitter X, or you go even on LinkedIn right now, it is horrible. It is, and this enshitification, is that the internet more broadly, there's nothing new, exciting anymore. It's just slop, more of the same. And so this is my question to a lot of businesses and business leaders. If you look at short-term gain, you can probably right now quickly replace humans or services or products with AI. And I see it already in sort of help desks and services. It's all being replaced by AI, but honestly, it feels very artificial. It feels undermining sort of what was a very good service. And I am very worried that if we look back in 10 years' time and we look at what has AI delivered for us, it's going to be low quality, sort of slop, AI slop. Look at the writing that is happening right now. So my question is to business leaders, please, before you sort of are enticed or seduced by the short-term gain, think very carefully about what you're creating and think about the long-term value that you can create and the exciting new products that you can and services that you can create. Make it good,
Yes.
Please.
That makes me think of a phrase I've heard you say frequently. People make the place.
Yes.
In all sorts of ways. People make the place, both as what are we using all this technology for and who can help make it better, right? So it's wonderful to have this chance to speak with you today, Frederik.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this great conversation.
Or to having some future ones as well on these other big topics of the day.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks. So that's a wrap to this episode. We know that AI is going to transform business, but transformation in a positive way is not guaranteed. I hope all of our listeners will think more deeply about AI and what we can do to shape outcomes in a positive way. In future episodes, I hope to bring you Professor Anseel's thinking on business connections between China and the rest of the world, as well as how industry and business schools can find new ways to rate. Thank you for listening. If you have friends or colleagues who you think would also enjoy this podcast, please do share it with them.